Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of T-Dog RC. This is part 5 of the PC6 build from VQ Models, and this episode is all about getting all the little bits done that we need to get sorted to get it ready to go basically. So it's things like installing the fuel tank, installing the radio gear, remote glow, all those sorts of little bits and bobs that we've got to get through to get it finalised and ready to go up in the air. So if this is the first time you've come across the channel and you're into all things fixed wing RC and RC planes, then this is going to be a channel you're going to want to subscribe to. Get involved in all sorts of stuff, RC tech, Balsa, nitro, EDF, foam, all that sort of stuff. So anything to do with RC planes really, then if you like that, then hit the subscribe button, which will really help me out. And without further ado, let's get stuck in. Okay, so as mentioned on the introduction there, this episode is all about doing all the little faffy sort of bits, but absolutely necessary. For example, installing the fuel tank. Not going to get very far without one of those. So it's all those little extras we've got to do to get the plane finally finished and ready for its maiden. So we've got the fuel tank to install, the radio gear to install, onboard glow in my bag of bits here, obviously battery pack. I've got an onboard fuel filler system, fuel filter, obviously all the plumbing for the engine from the tank, and then I've got to make a little checklist really and go through all the little bits, things like making sure everything's properly Loctite, everything's tightened up. Where I can't use Loctite, you know, so if it's like plastic or something like that, then I use the shoe goop stuff just to secure any fastenings around that. Yeah, and it's all those little bits, getting the aerials sorted on the radio gear, and of course also as part of the radio installation, getting all the servos connected and tested and getting the directions of the travel going the right way. Get it sort of trimmed out at eye level. Obviously can't do the final trimming until the maiden, but all those sorts of little bits, just as I said, just to get it all finished. So I think the first thing I'm going to start with is getting the fuel tank installed and all the plumbing done and the filler, get the remote glow on, and then once I've done that I will then move on to getting the radio gear installed, getting the servos set up and tested and make sure everything's moving in the right direction, all that sort of stuff. I've got some servo extension leads to fit for the ailerons, Loctiting everything like I've said. So yeah, we'll start with the plumbing of the engine. So let's get the camera up onto the desk mount and let's get stuck into that. Okay, so what I've decided to start with, the very first thing I'm going to do is get this installed, which is the Dubro Easy fueling valve. And these are really handy because basically just that gets installed inside the model, and then you just, well, in fact let me take it out of the bag a sec. So it's just a nice little thing like that with, there's a little cap, and then that just pushes in like that. So when it's pushed in like that, the fuel can't come out of here, and then when you pull it out when you want to refuel it, that allows the fuel to flow. And then you just mount it in the plane like that, so this bit's going to stick out the bottom. That side goes to the tank, that side goes to the engine, or vice versa. Can't quite remember which way around it is, but I'll check that obviously. So yeah, just makes it really easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to install it in here. So if I just flip this up to the bottom, I'm going to have this mounted on here like that, so it's just going to stick out. Obviously you won't see it, so it's not a problem really unless you look underneath the plane, but it will go in there just perfect because there's a ply plate in there, so I can get it pushed through there and fastened in. It's pretty simple to install. I've just got to drill a hole the same diameter as that there to allow that to go through. Sorry, that side actually, just to allow the thread to go through. and fasten it in place. So it won't take me a second to do that, so I'll get that hole drilled there in the middle, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so filler is installed. You can see that just poked out the bottom there nicely in the middle, so that's nice and easy to use. Just got to hook it up to the fuel tank. Then you'll also see I've got these leads poking out the front. So this is for my remote glow system, which I've just mounted the button here. Just put a little bit of, I've got one of these servo screws with a hex head there, and I've just put a little bit of hot glue across the top, because that's probably going to vibrate quite a lot when the engine's running. It might have a tendency to come undone. So I've just secured it in place with a bit of extra hot glue as well. But I've tested this as well with a glow plug and my battery. It works brilliantly. So you just press that, the red light comes on for 20 seconds, and the glow, it really gets the glow nice and bright. So that shouldn't be a problem at all. Just obviously need to see how much juice it sucks out the battery. And then I've just mounted that. If I can just get the camera, it's a bit tricky. I've still got it on my mount. Hopefully you can see that in there. So I've just mounted the remote glow controller in there, and I've just used some hot glue just to fasten that to the side of the fuselage, and then I've ran the cables underneath. There's like two floors, so there's a top floor where the fuel tank's going to go in here, and as you can see it's got holes in it. So I've ran the cables underneath there to the button, so that's quite neat. And then that is the power cable. I've got that going through this former here on the side, but then I just need to connect that up to the a spare port on the receiver or a Y lead, and just make sure that's nice and neat. But really the next job now is to get the fuel tank installed, I think. So that's going to be the next thing. Obviously get that put in there, get it hooked up with a filter to the engine, and then once I've done that and I've got the pipes stuck out of here, I can get the engine remounted semi-permanently. So yeah, next job, fuel tank. So I'll be right back. Alright, fuel tank is mounted. Very pleased with the way that that's gone in. Fits in there nicely. I mean, I could get a slightly bigger one, but I think that's fine. That should give me plenty of time. On the bed, the floor where the fuel tank sits on, I've put some of the sort of the black foam to line battery trays and that sort of thing. I've used some contact adhesive to glue that to the balsa tray or ply tray, and then as you can see there, I've got a cable tie going around the fuel tank, and that's nice and solid. That's not going to go anywhere. It's a really good sturdy fit. Got the pipe working. That's at the moment just hanging out the front. Obviously that's way too long, but I've got to cut that down once I get the engine mounted. I've got the fuel filter installed in there, so that one's going to go to the carb, that one goes to the silencer. So that's all done. So next job is I've got to remount the engine on here, sort of semi-permanently as it were. I'm not intending to take it off again after this installation. The only thing, I won't bother filming that because it'll be pretty much the same as when you saw it before, but the only thing I have got to do is lock tight the nuts onto the bolts. So I'll get that done, and then it's a case of getting all the radio gear installed. So I've got my battery pack, I've got a switch which is a really nice quality switch. You don't want to, something as simple as a switch can bring the plane down basically, if you go for like a cheap one. So that's a really good quality one, so I've got to get that installed. Obviously I've got the receiver, and I've also got my redundant receiver, so I've got to get that mounted. And the other thing I've got is one of these battery monitors as well, which is compatible with 4.8 and 6 volts. I'm probably going to stick that in the window here with the lights just sort of showing through the top of the window there. So I'll probably just hot glue it onto the inside of the fuselage, but you'll just see the lights along the top. I think that would be a good place to put it, because then you can almost see it then as you fly past, if you're a little bit worried about the battery level. So then, yeah, once I've got the radio gear installed, then I've just got to set all the surfaces up. I've got to reinforce this a little bit because that sort of dips in there. And then I'm pretty sure we're more or less ready to go. So I'll start work on the radio gear installation, and I'll show you a couple of clips along the way with that. So back in a few minutes with the radio gear installed. Okay, couple of days later since I filmed the last video, I've got the radio gear kind of installed now. So I've just got the receiver in there. I've just made a little wooden block there out of some light ply and just put a 3M sticky pad on it. So once I've finished setting all the radio gear up, that will be fastened to that. I've got all the servos connected and the extensions put in place. I've got my battery monitor somewhere. Oh, it's just through there at the minute, but that I'm going to put that in the window so you'll be able to see it. I've mounted the switch there so you can see that. Tested it, so everything's working okay. Elevator, rudder, and the throttle is all moving okay. I've not put the wings on and tested the ailerons and flaps yet, but I'll sort that shortly. But I've made myself a list of things that I need to get done on this, so let me just quickly show you that. So that's my list at the moment. There's a fair few little bits and bobs. Most of them are fairly small jobs. So I need to extend the flat leads. I've got to set the throttle up on the radio and just make sure that's in the right position. Connect the battery monitor directly. I need to connect the battery monitor and glue that into position in the window. I've got to adjust all the travels, so things like that setting there. So I need to adjust those so they're all neutral when the servos are in the neutral position, and then obviously I'll need to trim them on the maiden. Loctite all the grub screws on things like so on those sorts of things there, just to make sure that the little grub screw so can't quite see it there, but the grub screw in there is Loctited, so I've got to go around and do all those. Then I've got to put some shoe goop on these horns, so that's on these bits here. Just put a bit of the shoe goop glue, which sort of dries like a rubbery finish. It's a bit like hot glue, I suppose, but probably a bit more flexible. So just put a little bit of dab of that on there just to stop those from coming out. They are pretty secure anyway, but it's just belt and braces really. Check the centre of gravity, set the failsafe, Loctite any other fastenings that I've got in place, do a range test, and then I think we're about done. But the big thing I do need to take another look at is this rudder. So if you've watched any of these previous videos, I think it was in video number 1 I put the tail on, and I wasn't 100% satisfied with the rudder anyway, but now I've got the servo hooked up. I've actually put this block there, by the way, just to stop this snake from bending, because it was flexing quite a lot when the rudder was moving. So I've just used one of those little shelf blocks, which is perfect. I've just epoxied that in place. But I'm just not happy. It hardly moves, and it just seems to be putting a lot of strain on the servo. So it's just not right. The setup of it, I don't know, it's just not the best design I've seen. So I need to flip the plane over, take this hatch off the bottom, and just have a look and a play with that. I may need to cut some of the material away to try and make it move a bit better. So that's actually going to be the next thing I'm going to get stuck into now. And then once I've done that, I'll just finish tidying up the radio gear. I've also got my little satellite receiver, which is hooked up, and I'm just going to probably glue that into position around here somewhere. So I'm going to crack on with the rudder, and then once I've done that and I've got the radio gear all set up, I shall show you the results. Okay guys, so quick update on where I'm at with this since the last clip. It's been a few days and I've made a fair bit of progress. So I've got the receiver mounted in here now with all the cables set up. I've got my little satellite receiver that's hot glued in place there. You can see I've got the aerials at antennas at 90 degrees there, so that's got in quite nicely. And then I just need to sort this antenna here to get that one to go straight, but I've already got that one set at an angle right at 90 degrees there. So I've checked the CG and it was pretty much bang on. I couldn't believe it, to be honest. I was really expecting it to either be nose heavy or tail heavy, but it was just ever so slightly nose heavy, just a tiny bit. But then when you consider the fuel tank was completely empty, I've still got to put the cowl on, and I've got a different spinner to put on, which will be heavier than this one. I was pretty satisfied with that. So it'll be a little bit more nose heavy by the time all that's done. And then battery, I'm going to get mounted here like this. I've taken the seats out because I'm not really too fussed about those, to be honest. And I'm going to mount the battery right in the middle there like that, which will be perfect for the CG that I want to achieve. So that's where it's going to go. I'm going to put some of the sort of foam stuff, the grippy foam stuff there, and then just cable tie that, so that's not going to move around at all. So that's perfect. I've done all the bits and bobs on, so like I've sorted all the travels out, etc., and set the radio up. I've got all the wings set up, the flaps, everything's pretty much done now. I've put some shoe goop on these things, it's a bit of belt and braces really, just to stop those from ever coming undone. I've Loctited all of the servo connectors, like that one there. So almost there. I've got a last few little bits to do, which is on my list, which I shall just show you. So those are all the things that I've done. So the last thing I've got to do is mount the battery, put the spinner on, put the needle valve extension, sort that, get the cowl on, and then just need to add a few little extra settings to my radio. And then the other last thing, which I almost forgot about, is there are these wing braces, which I think are for show more than anything. I don't think they actually add really any strength. I suppose they might add a little bit, but they're mainly for show. But they basically fasten on here with a little bolt, and there's a blind nut. But for some reason they haven't put the blind nut in at the factory, so they leave you to do that. They've put the one in the wing, but they haven't put the one in the fuselage, and it's really tricky to get it in there. If I open this, you might be able to see I've already been playing with the one on the other side. I don't know if you can see that there. Let me see if I can zoom in on that a little bit. You can see that's there, but it's not the best, and there's not much for it to grip onto either really. So I'm going to have a bit of a play with that, but I might end up mounting that in a little bit of ply and then gluing that ply in place, but we'll see. So that's just one of the other little things that I've got to do, but it's almost there, it's almost ready. When I put the wings on the other day to check the CG, I took it outside and it looks absolutely superb. I'm so pleased with it, and I didn't even have the cowl on then either. So really looking forward to getting this finished and getting it out to the flying field. So I will just get those last little bits done with the spinner. I've bought this little beauty, by the way. Nice stainless steel spinner. I might have to just grind a bit of this away because the prop's pretty big. So obviously I've got to check that out and just see how that fits. But if I need to grind that away, I'll just use my Dremel, I think, and just use it to make that a little bit bigger. But we'll see how it goes. But that's one of the things I've got to get done, obviously. So our next clip will be the last clip for this particular video, and that will be the finished fuselage with everything ready to go. And then the next time you see it, it will be basically down the flying field. So we're looking forward to that. So I'll crack on with those extra little bits, and I'll be right back. Well, there it is, all ready to go. Cowl on, prop on, spinner on, exhaust on. So everything's mounted. Absolutely love this spinner. It's an aluminium spinner, really nice thing. Probably need to play around with the cowl just a little bit more to get it to line up absolutely perfectly, but to be honest, I'm pretty happy with that. Really love the way it looks. This is how it looks on the full scale version as well. They've got a spinner very similar to this. The only difference is that one's got a 4-bladed prop, but I'm not too worried about that. Really love the look of it. So got the battery mounted as well in there. You can just about see it through the window. So that's all mounted in there, nice and secure with a cable tie. Oh, and I got the blind nuts. Actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was quite easy in the end. Just pulled them through with the actual bolt. I just had to put a plate on this side so it didn't pull the bolt through as I was tying it up, but that's pulled the blind nut into the plywood. So hopefully that'll be okay. So well, it's ready for the maiden. It's going to be a nerve-wracking one because I have ended up putting quite a lot of time into this, kind of a lot more, even though these things are classed as almost ready to fly. You know, you still do have to put a lot of time into getting them ready, particularly if you're doing a nitro engine with the engine mount and all that sort of stuff, and getting the cowl cut out and everything. Obviously it's a bit more tricky with exhaust and needle valve and all that sort of stuff that you wouldn't have with an electric motor. But yeah, just can't wait to get it down the field and get that made and done, and you know, get it checked out. Be much more relieved when I've done that. Of course I will film that as well, so look out for that on the channel. But that wraps it up for this episode, and also wraps it up for this little series I've done on getting this thing put together. So hope you've enjoyed them all. It does take a lot longer to do it as well while you're filming, so you know, you kind of obviously have to keep stopping and filming bits and stuff like that. So but anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed watching it, enjoyed going through it with me, and appreciate you all watching. Appreciate you subscribing. If you can help me out by subscribing, I would really appreciate it. I'm not far off 500 subscribers now, so that's where I'm trying to get to, and then I can start posting some photos up for all my subscribers as I'm working in the old workshop and down at the field, keep everyone up to date. So that'd be fantastic. Also help me out by giving it a like, and that will be it for now. So I will see you soon for the next one.